Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Matty Chymbor podcast. We talk about my age. What is it? You'll find out if you keep watching. We talked about bowling, drinking, Tampa Bay hotels, and old people in Naples, Florida people. Say people one more time. You people better like, subscribe, leave a comment. It's exciting. For those of you who want to come see me live doing stand-up comedy, strap in. I will be in Chicago April 11th through the 13th. I will be in Denver April 20th, Oklahoma City March 6th, Tulsa, Oklahoma March 7th, Washington, D.C. May 3rd through the 4th. And last but not least, I'll be in Tampa, a.k.a. Wesley Chapel, on June 13th and the 15th. Get your tickets at mattychymborpodcast.com. Be sure to leave a comment. Appreciate you guys watching and enjoy the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of the Matty Chymbor podcast. What an exciting episode we are about to dig into. We have cool new things, one of which is my age. I'm not a 36-year-old man anymore. I'm a 39-year-old. The gods of age said, you look way older than you do, and guess what? You're 39. I'm just kidding. I'm 37, everybody. I don't know if you can tell. It's interesting getting older because I don't feel older. I don't think I look much older, but then again, I see photos of myself and I go, oh, I'm both older looking, I look gross, I act gross, and it's exciting. My girlfriend's mother the other day did not know I was 37. She was shocked by the news and said, oh my God, I thought he was 35, which is an interesting compliment that I think when you're within 2 years of the real age, it's like, you know what, oddly enough, it seems more like an insult, if anything, but feels good getting older. I think 3 and 7 are two relatively lucky numbers. I was going to look it up, but I don't even think what source would I've looked up if I had to, you know, who's the source for fucking lucky numbers? I don't know. I mean, what am I going to go to CNN? Anyways, I thought 3 and 7. I feel like 3 and 7 are two numbers that I could be right on this, where whenever you're doing some sort of magic trick, those are like the ones they say people's brains go to the most. So maybe that's a good thing for me and people. Now maybe I'm going to pop in people's heads more. So I don't know, but it's interesting. It's weird being closer to 40. I mean, when you turn 36, you're already on the back end of the hill. But now I'm getting closer, and it feels, you know, there's some sense of just giving up, not in a bad way, but you're just like, whatever. What am I gonna? I mean, I'm being joking, but it's like, what am I gonna bitch about my age? I mean, it's not gonna stop. And you know what? I refuse to be one of those people, the older I get, where I reminisce about the past. Because I think when people do that, that's them not wanting to really live. They're not living in the moment. You got to live in the moment, people. Like, don't be one of the guys where they're like, oh man, remember that. I mean, I get it. At the end of the day, let me sidebar. I get it. You see some friends, you want to, hey, remember this, remember that. Remember the time you puked and shit and we got arrested and blamed it on somebody else. I don't know. I get reminiscing, but sometimes people live in that pocket too long, and you're just like, I don't want to be that, because I don't want to be the person that, while I'm this age, I'm like wishing I was younger because of X, Y, and Z. And then when I'm older, I'm going to be like, man, my whole age of 37, I was wishing I was 27 or whatever. So I'm trying to just find fun shit in the moment. I mean, what's this age? What is this age? I don't know. I mean, I make silly videos online about being in your 30s. Obviously, I'm playing up to some sort of fake. I'm embellishing on, you know, the silliness of just not wanting to go out. I mean, my type of videos, whenever I say like, oh, 30-year-olds that don't want to go out, or them avoiding plans, all this stuff like that. You're like, that's really, like, if you think about it, that's like 1 to 2, maybe I'll say 1 to 5% of the time of your brain when plans and events are presented to you. But in the world of comedy, and the reason I'm saying all this is because clearly people in the comment sections on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc., they think I'm being serious as if that's me 100% of the time. You're like, yeah, I mean, like I said, 5 to 10% of the time, you know, you don't want to go out, or it's, you know, if somebody's like, hey, do you want to go get drinks at 10 p.m.? I'm like, I'm not sure. But the other, I'm already fucking slurring. I mean, let's be honest. The other 90% of the time, you want to do it. So, I don't know. I think if anything, you're shedding when you get older, you kind of just get like, you get a little more grounded. You kind of shed the immaturity shit of like, doing dumb things. Like, it's not like, oh, people in their 20s just go out around like 2. I mean, they go out until like 3 a.m. every night, or what am I trying to say? Let me step back. You stop doing the things that are like staying up all night, like fucking, drinking 20 beers, which even then some people fucking still do that. Let's be honest. But, I don't know. I think you just you find your lane. I mean, if anything, I'm trying to get rid of bad habits. I feel like your 20s is just bad habits where it's, like I said, going out or being a fucking prick or whatever. You're trying to tighten your window. And if anything, I feel like you're trying to, get things under control more. That's where, when things are out of control, that's where I feel it the most. And, that's what, that's what, if I had to put your 30s, but more so your mid to late 30s in a sentence, it's trying to, tighten things up. It's like, what do you typically try to tighten up? Like when you're kind of getting loose with your behaviors, or maybe you're working out, you're wishy-washy with the gym. For that analogy, it's like you're trying to get more of a schedule, a routine, etc. So that's what I'm trying to fucking do. That's what I'm trying to do. Am I perfect? No. I mean, I don't think anybody's perfect, but I preach one way, and then the next month I'm a different person. I mean, we did dry January. Now it's fucking wetter February. We're wet, baby. We're back. Do I want to be back? Like it's like a thing I was that I was avoiding, and now I want to get back into it. I don't want to I don't really want to get back into that world of drinking like I was pre-January, or as some say, December and November. But, I want to, I have a couple of drinks. Went out for my birthday. We went, let me step back. We were traveling, but, the week prior, we're in Tampa. I'll get to that. Or we're in Florida for shows, but, I'll get to that after this little fucking rant. Had some drinks on my birthday. Did I have too many? I don't know. I've realized with me, when it comes to like, beer, unless I'm buying a beer at a time, I don't really know. I don't keep track too hard. Like it's easier to keep track when you go to a bar and you get a beer and drink it, and then you finish it, and then you go get back to the bar, get another one. But we went bowling because that's the best thing to do on a birthday. And if you think otherwise, you can, unsubscribe if you're even subscribed. But we were doing the pitchers. Whenever you drink pitchers, I don't think it's impossible to keep track of really what's going on. I mean, I think there was at no point did I have a full glass, and at no point did I have an empty glass. It was just me living in the middle, consuming alcohol. I was keeping a tab on how I felt, and there was, after the first game, the first couple frames, I mean, halfway through the first game, round 5, was it frame 5, round 5? I don't know what the terms are, bowling. I like it. I don't know the terms. Definitely felt the alcohol kind of playing with the ball a little more than I wanted. I mean, I felt like I was kind of just, that's where I was like, okay, let me pull back. I knew I had more stuff to do that night. Matty got a dinner, a reservation for us. So I was like, let me pull back. So I was trying to use that, as a gauge, but they go down smooth. And like I said, when you just have this like middle of the way glass of beer, you're gonna get bit a little bit. I got nipped. I mean, we're all gonna get bit a little bit. It's impossible to go out and just have like one beer. When people go out and have like one beer, and I've done it every now and then, and sometimes it's because you're tired or whatever, but it's like in a moment of like, bowling 30 or everybody in their mid to late 30. I mean, it's like that's our time to kind of let loose, have a couple more. And did I feel it this morning? I think I did a little bit, or this whole day. But one thing I noticed, like where I'm glad with the late 30s, like my rules I'm trying to set up for myself, I definitely felt the difference from dry January to having a couple more drinks than I wanted. I wasn't hungover today, but outside of like the hangover symptoms or whatever you want to call it, you just kind of feel like it affects the day as a whole. Even when I felt better, my motivation to do X, Y, and Z was not particularly there. So I don't know. I don't want to go on this alcohol rant the whole fucking time, but it was, it's fun to have a drink, whatever, have a beer, go fucking whip a ball down a lane. I get sore bowling now. I mean, is that my body or is that me pushing it too hard? I don't know. But guess what? My arm hurts. My fingers hurt. One of my toes was jamming. I was getting fucking hammer toe. Is that hammer toe when you're bowling with shoes that are fucking too big and it was like sliding, but we had a heated game and it was pretty exciting. But that's why I like bowling. People say they don't like bowling. They act like it's, they're good for it. Too good for it. It's kind of like bowling's like Cheesecake Factory where people shit on it and then you bring them there and they're like, this is actually way better than I thought. Is it good? It's good, but it's easy to rag on it. But that's why I liked yesterday, because once people start playing, their competitiveness starts to show up. And that's kind of what makes things so much better. I mean, that's why I can see why people bet on sports. I mean, yes, they're degenerates and want to make a lot of money, etc. Potentially, but it adds a level of excitement. That's why like competitiveness is like the original gambling. I mean, it just adds stakes. And like I said, when you're a bunch of grown men and women playing bowling, sometimes, the shit talking ramps up and it makes a good environment. It was friendly. There was trash talking nonetheless, but it makes it better. I hate when people like do sports or let's stick to bowling when they do it and they're kind of just dicking off. Like people are doing the spin thing where they have to put two fingers in. You can't even spin with all three, which I can't do. I mean, spinning with bowling, if you can do that, that's actually pretty impressive. But no, it was competitive, and we fucking went after it. I mean, nothing like a competitive game where the person who won got a 133, which is shout outs to Don DePetta for doing that. I mean, he was a sleeper. He bowls like a refrigerator. He looks like a refrigerator that's going at the lane. You can't even see the fucking ball until he moves out of the way. But anyways, he won. Congratulations. I want to give credit where credit's due. But that was the evening. I mean, as a whole, the birthday was great. Mandy did an awesome job curating the day. We woke up. We flew back from Tampa. Let me go back. Let me pull back a little bit. I know I'm talking about the present, trying to live in the now or more closer to the now. But I think we talked about it in the last podcast. But we went to Florida last week for shows. It was great. We had a show in Naples. Myself, Mandy, and comedian friend Michael Lenoci. Me and Michael co-headline Naples. Florida shows are interesting. I mean, you're just performing for old people. I mean, say what you want. That's just it. And it's good. I mean, people, when I got into comedy, I was like, man, I want to be cool. I want you see, like, I saw like Dane Cook's fan base or any other popular comic at the time. They had like a cool looking fan base. And you think you're just going to perform to like your age or around that for that matter. But like gigs like in Florida, and Reno's one, but like we'll use Florida. It's good because it gets you like, it's the reality of comedy. There's like the fantasy world where you're making your peers laugh and you're fucking cool and shit's going great and you're the cool guy. You know what I'm saying? But then there's the reality of comedy where you show up to a gig in Naples and, I mean, the average age is like 65. And then you're like, oh, this is comedy. Comedy isn't making your peers laugh. Comedy's making fucking every age laugh. That's the hardest part. So, I mean, thankfully I've done Florida in the past. We did Reno before. So you kind of, I've done a freaking casino in Palm Springs, which is like old people capital of California. You learn the tips and tricks, and I think it starts molding you as a more universal comedian. So I think, that being said, going into it was actually a lot of fun. It was just me, Mandy, and Michael. Mandy went up, and then me and Mike kind of split the back half of the show. And it's good though. It's interesting doing jokes with people that are older than you because you just feel the moments where they just don't get the references, and you're like, it's not that I'm critiquing my joke, but I'm like, okay, in that moment, I can either keep it and just stick to my guns, or you can rewrite it slightly. You know, you don't want to completely cater to them, but you're like, okay, how can I write this joke where they get it too? You know what I'm saying? So you're not completely alienating X amount of people in a room, and you're, you know, being more universally funny. I mean, that's the theme of this rant. So it's basically, I have a joke about girls in LA, single girls in LA who act like fuckboys. I mean, everybody my age and down, roughly, I mean, maybe older too, but the term fuckboy, clearly there's a window of age where people understand what that means. And I've run into this before, and, you know, you're like, okay, how do I do this joke? How do, because I don't want to not do jokes. And I was like, how can I do this joke where it still works? So I think a term that I swapped out for this, I said girls act like players. A player and a fuckboy, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, what's a player? I want to see what this says. Urban Dictionary, a guy who talks or flirts with a few girls at the same time and goes from one to the other. So, I mean, that's the same thing as a fuckboy. It's kind of like a bop around, trying to be a hot shot. Basically, the joke, I said girls act like fuckboys, and I lived with a girl once. I mean, it's true. She was some Craigslist roommate. Just was in between leases. I had to get shit figured out. Stay with her. Very nice girl. Anyways, it was interesting because it was like she had like a fuckboy mentality. Like she was trying to be the fuckboy to guys. And I go, that doesn't work. That's like, you can't use that weapon doesn't work against somebody who also yields that weapon. It's like two skunks fighting. It doesn't work. And the joke is, you know, that fuckboy this, fuckboy that, and she slept at this guy. She came back after a one night stand, and this actually happened. She was like, "Oh yeah, I hooked up with this guy last night, and I fucking left before he woke up, as if she was like getting him." And I was like, "Yeah, you really ruined his morning." I mean, what does she think happened? Like, I'm like, you just gave that guy the best case scenario. Like every other girl, if you wanted to piss him off, you should have stayed till like lunch. But anyways, that whole joke, I did it that night. Did the player thing, worked good. Did it work good? I don't know. It was fucking fine, but Naples was good. It was a bunch of old people. It was interesting. We flew into Fort Lauderdale, and then we had to drive across the state, which you can do in an hour and a half, which is crazy. Connecticut, every state you live in, it's like crazy where you're like, oh, I can drive across the state in this amount of time. But driving through Florida, we drove through the Everglades. That was pretty interesting. I mean, I always heard what the Everglades were, but I never knew what it was. The Everglades, for people who have no clue or who were like me prior to making that drive, I thought it was just like a little bit of a swamp. I mean, it's the tip of this. It's like the bottom tip of the state. Tip being like a good chunk. And I could be maybe underestimating how big are the Florida Everglades. I mean, it was a pretty fucking big. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's 7,800 square miles. So that said, drove through that. I mean, now I understand every true crime documentary and why people dump bodies there. I mean, it's a marshland where there's alligators. I'm like, if you want to fucking get rid of a body, go to the Everglades. I'm not saying you shouldn't even do the thing where you're getting to the point where you want to get rid of a body, but I'm saying that's where you got to go. And why is my brain like that? I mean, that's fucked up that these true crime documentaries, they train you to think this weird way. That's why I don't like true crime documentaries. I liked them for a little bit, and I didn't like that, like, I'd watch these things and, like, you know, some of the people would get caught, and then, like, I think it's human nature to, like, watch something where there's a problem, and in the true crime scenario, the guy got caught, and now your brain's, like, trying to think of ways how he couldn't have gotten caught. I'm like, I don't need to troubleshoot murder. You know what I'm saying? That's weird. I don't want to sit on the couch. Yeah, I feel for the victim, but like in that moment, you're like, why am I troubleshooting what this guy should have done? You know what he should have done? He shouldn't have fucking whacked the person or whatever he did. But anyways, don't be in that situation, but the Everglades are crazy to drive through. No, it's nuts, man. He says she saw an alligator. I mean, for all we know, it was just a tire that was slightly submerged, but you know, the eyes will see what they want to see. It's funny, back in Connecticut, this is a white person alert. I'm going to hit you with a lot of white things, but my family had a beach house on the shores of Connecticut. And anyways, we would walk to Dairy Queen. We're still in the white person alert realm. That was a pretty Caucasian statement. anyways, we would walk to Dairy Queen after dinner every night. It was probably like a mile round trip, maybe a little more. But anyways, it was a small house. And when we were growing up, my mom used to claim that one of the houses was for Snow White. Or she says that was Snow White's house, or is Snow White's. I think in the moment she said is. It was really tiny. Everything was small, and I was like, when you're a kid, you're like, well, why would she lie to me? Why would my mother be lying to me right now? She must be telling the truth. And I remember I was like, did you ever see Snow White or anything? She's like, yeah, a long time ago. So now she's like building the lie where it's like potentially people there. Maybe Snow White's in there. She's like, oh, she doesn't come out. And one time I remember walking by and I was like, oh man, I saw one of the dwarfs. I almost said gnome and midget, and I was like, I can't say either one of those. But anyways, I remember telling her, I was like, oh, I saw one of the hats of the dwarfs, and she's like, you did, huh? And I was like, yep. And then now it's funny in hindsight. She's like, okay, now my son's a liar because of me being a liar. Which parenting, is that good? I don't know. But anyways, that was me where I'm going back on the eyes seeing what they want to see. I thought it was a funny tangent story, and I still think it is. But so drove back there and back from Naples. I mean, stayed in a hotel. There's good hotels, people, and there's bad hotels. What are you? Are you a good hotel? Do you have a good lobby? Do you have a nice shower? What makes a good hotel for Matty Chymbor? Right off the bat, I know this sounds crazy. See, if I say this, I don't want people to think I'm downplaying a bed, but I want a good shower. Let's assume the beds are constant, clean. There's a standard we're going to assume we're above. It's, everything's clean and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, for me, I want a good shower. I've had hotels with good showers, and I've had hotels where it felt like 3 people were pissing on me, and it wasn't enough. The hotel in Naples was a good one. Bathroom ceiling too low, maybe, I don't know, but it was that was a good one. They had a nice gym, everything was new. They had a continental breakfast. It was just fine. I mean, I'm not saying it was 5-star. It was still like a Holiday Inn or something like that, but it was good. Everything about it they had it figured out. Cut to our shows in Tampa, which is actually outside of Tampa. It was in Wesley Chapel, which I'm going to be there. Per the intro tour dates, I will be there June 13th through the 15th. So I'm going to be back at this hotel, and I now know what to expect. But their whole situation was sketch. It was just like they claim they renovated it. How come every time people say they renovated something, you're like, why does it look bad? What did you do? Would you renovate it with old rug? Anyways, this shower was ass. The beds, I mean, were tiny. The hot carpet everywhere. I mean, some of these hotels, you're like, you don't need carpet everywhere. But the most bizarre thing was when the bathroom's so small, they're like, let's take the sink and let's take the sink out of the bathroom. Nothing like brushing my teeth an inch from a bed. That's a bizarre trait. That, I mean, I have a master's in architecture. I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying, layout design wise, sometimes I go to these places and I'm like who did this? Who's responsible for this? Because we need to dump their body in the Everglades. We need to find the person who said, you know what? Let's renovate this place. Let's add some older carpet than what's there. We're going to put the sink outside of the bathroom, and I want the shower to take about 10 extra minutes for the person to wash the soap out of their hair. I mean, that's basically it. But anyways, back to the stories, the trip. I don't want to completely doing this. I just want to give you guys a recap of how the shows were. They were fun. We had a good time. But anyways, we went from Naples to Boca Raton or Raton or Raton, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Show there was fun. My girlfriend's family was there. I bombed in front of my girlfriend's grandpa. It was a good time. He was sleeping halfway through the set, so I think he probably won't remember much of it. But we had a good time there. It's fun just doing shows with friends. We're all kind of going to this weird situation together. And then we shot up to, like I said, Wesley Chapel, which is right outside Tampa. And the shows there were great. They were in a movie theater. This is the first time I've ever performed in a movie theater. Imagine you going to a movie theater and there's the hallway and there are like beekeepers on your left, Willy Wonka's on your further left, and on your right is a comedy club, which it sounds bizarre, and somebody told me about it before we went there. Shout out to Side Splitters, West Chapel, which is actually, it was a lot of fun. It was crazy fun. They were very attentive, I think, because of the seats and the lack of tables. There were tables in the front. They kind of like they speaking of renovating, and for the good, they renovated the front. So there were tables, but it was interesting. People not at tables were, they were messing around more. But when people were in just like seats at a movie theater watching stand-up, it was, they were great. The shows were good, and I'm happy to be going back there in June. And if you guys can go, good. If you can't, because logistics, that's fine. But, I'm excited to go there. So we did those shows and ate like shit. I mean, the road's fun. People are like, oh, how's doing the road? The road's not super glam. If the road was a girl, she'd be like a 5. I mean, in some lighting, you're like, oh, that's good. But like for the most part, it's not glamorous. You're just, I don't want to say you're bored, but there's a lot of downtime. If you're trying to be healthy, me and Mandy have been trying to eat healthy. I mean, it's tough. I mean, one, for finding good food, and then when you if you can't find like healthy places with healthy food, then you go to like some restaurant, and now you got the bad food tempting you. I mean, there's a temptation factor that I just got to get better at. That's, speaking of being 37, I got to tighten up the temptation I have with certain foods. I mean, the guilt outweighs the desire to actually go through with ordering it, but then there's times where I justify getting it. And, we went to, I think I've had chicken tenders every night when I was there, because sometimes that's like a safe food that people can't fuck up, and they managed to do that. Every place I had chicken tenders at that whole trip messed them up to some degree, which is, I'm learning. I thought it was impossible. Apparently it's possible. So, but we had a good time. I mean, we hung out with our friends on the first night, Chad and JT. You guys probably know them. If you don't, they have a podcast called Going Deep with Chad and JT. They do funny videos, not name dropping, but we did hang out with them the first night. That's the fun part about the road, where your peers are randomly in the city you're in. Because in LA, we don't get to hang out much because everybody's doing this, that, and the other. They're on the road when I'm not, and vice versa. And randomly, we all got to go out with them and get a drink, and that was fun. So, but that opened the floodgates of having a couple of drinks. I didn't have a drink up to that point. And then, you're like, look, after I get off stage, it's the best when somebody kind of succumbs with you, and I'd get off stage, and me and Mandy look at each other. I was like, I kind of want a beer. And she's like, I kind of do too. Which right there, you're like, well, we're going to do it. I mean, we crossed the line. You might as well just put the beer in my stomach at that point. And, that kind of got me, that was pre-birthday. I keep spitting when I'm talking. I'm sorry. And these aren't drops. They're fucking like spit coming out of my mouth. That opened the floodgates for the buildup of my birthday, and I had a couple of drinks there. But we were there till Monday. Woke up super early. We had like a 7 a.m. flight, and then landed. It's Monday being my birthday, and then Sunday being my birthday. We got back Sunday. So anyways, going back, sorry for these big side trails, but that's where I was starting to discuss the day we had. Mandy she curated a wonderful day for my birthday. And we were dead tired though. I mean, we woke up at like 1 a.m. LA time, which was 4 a.m. East Coast time. We had to take a flight back. I slept sort of, but we got back for my birthday, got ramen at Silver Lake Ramen. Shout outs. It's so good. I mean, it's interesting, like being from the East Coast, there's just foods out here that you just didn't, it's not that they weren't around, but they were just so unpopular, and your brain I didn't even know what it was. Like when I heard ramen on the East Coast, I was like, oh, that's just like cup of soups. That's like instant ramen, not knowing there's this delectable fucking cuisine that's actually called authentic ramen, and there's a place over like ramen which is so fucking good. I mean, it's one of those foods. I don't know if you ever have a food where you're like, oh, I see why people are overweight. I mean, I can see the path. And I've walked down it, and luckily, like I said, my guilt and shame has turned me around. think a lot of us have gone down that path. It depends how far you go down. And, hopefully a lot of us have the willpower to come back. But I mean, you see, when you have certain foods, you're like, I mean, right now, if that bowl is in front of me, I would just destroy it. It's that good. People, if you live in wherever the hell you live, you have to look up ramen restaurant and do me a favor and get it. It's something worth experiencing. It's life-changing, and we went there and it was so good. I mean, my mom, speaking of ramen, when she got COVID, I think a year or two ago, God, whenever that, it wasn't like the original one, but it was like one of the strands. I Postmated her ramen, which I'm shocked there was even any in Connecticut, and she was like, holy shit. It was cute because she goes, there was meat in it. I don't know if that was how to flavor it or eat it. I didn't eat it, but it was good. And so it was like, it's funny. She didn't think everything in the bowl was edible, which you're like, just eat it. But, to each their own, as long as she liked it. But anyway, seriously, if you do yourself a favor, stop right now. If it's lunch, if you're wondering what to eat for dinner, look up a ramen place and put it in the comment below. If you get it and it's good or bad or whatever, put it in the comment below. Give me a ramen review, even though you're not qualified. You're qualified. We're all qualified to give a fucking review. I hate these. Everybody's like famous for reviewing food now, which is just like, you're like, oh, this is not a person who's like qualified to. I mean, it's not that they're not qualified, but it's just like, it's like me or you. I mean, that's lifting the veil on like social media success for a lot of people that like do certain things like that. You're like, it's just somebody who decided to do it. Like Dave Portnoy does pizza. You're like, he's not a chef. He's just a person that eats a lot of pizza. So it's always, my friend texted me yesterday. He's like, oh, I got a pizza that Dave Portnoy reviewed and he got an 8.2. I'm like, bro, that's like one of you saying, tell me your friend reviewed a pizza and it was an 8.2. I'm like, who the fuck are you and who's your friend? It's interesting, but that's it. That's all it takes. But not to shit on those people, but I'm saying you guys should leave food reviews in my comments so we can start a community. I think that's one of the hardest things. Like, I mean, my girlfriend and I, we always like, whenever we go to a good place, we need to remember this place. Cause there's so many times where we're like trying to find food and I'm just blanking. It's crazy. That's like a feeling of being on like stage. And maybe when I was earlier on and you're like, it's like right when your brain is like putting pressure on itself to remember something, it can't think of it the way when I was on stage and I trying to think of the jokes and I couldn't think of it. But we got ramen for my birthday. It was very good. And then we went and got Cheesecake Factory because we got Cheesecake Factory. The celebration cheesecake there is very good. It's the best. Again, please try that, people. If you've had it, let me know what you think. If not, it's good. But what we did before that, we tried the Apple Vision Pro. I don't know if you guys have had a chance. It's interesting. You can't just go to the store and do it. You have to set up an appointment to do it. And I've never wore like any sort of VR stuff. I never wore any sort of VR stuff like ever. Like, I'm not even kidding you. I've never, ever, ever put on a VR headset until we were in Florida and we're staying at Mandy's mom's house and her little stepbrother had the Oculus 3. I mean, I felt like a caveman putting on, like looking at a phone. I'm trying to think of like the last time I felt that like sense of like, holy shit. Maybe when I held the iPhone for the first time and I was like, you ever like use something that's so advanced or cool? You think it's so cool. You're like smiling like a dummy the whole time. Like I put these on and I was just like, this is crazy. I mean, being the Oculus and I was doing this game. There's a game called Space Invaders or something like that. I mean, it's mind blowing. When you're shooting the little laser gun, sorry. It's mind blowing. One, how accurate it is as far as like the things going, and they're not like when you're shaking your head, they're staying still. But even like the details of like basically this thing, you're in the room and then the walls start to crumble, and it has this like Mars-esque, cartoony Pixar world on the outside of the room. So it's like semi the room you're in and then semi it looks like the wall broke, but like if you shoot it, it like shoots off in the distance. I mean, it's insane. If you guys have it, you know what I'm talking about. If not, but so anyways, I tried that there, and then I was like, well, first off, when I was trying that, and my buddy Mike mentioned he has a VR, and he was like, he says he bowls as any other. He also said he watches porn on it, and he goes, it's insane. And I mean, did that cross my mind? 100%. I mean, I was like, if this space game is this good, I can't even imagine what porn looks like on that. I mean, and he said he's like, it's nuts. He goes, he's like, when these get more advanced, he's like, I'm never leaving my house. And I was like, that's just insane. But I couldn't bring myself to look up porn on a teenager's Oculus. I go, for all I know, too, that's like how old people get caught doing. Like, I was like, I don't know how to erase the browser history. I'm not doing that. That's just too much. But yeah, the thing was insane. So we've been meaning to try the Apple Vision Pro stuff, and that's why. But you have to schedule the appointment, and every time we went to do it, it was like while we were away. So then I was like, oh shoot, let's schedule it. So we scheduled it for the day of my birthday because we wanted to go to. I went to Dick's and got new golf clubs because I'm aging gracefully. That's what old men do now. We get new golf clubs. They're very nice. They don't match our skill level, and that's what's happening. But prior to that, and prior to Cheesecake Factory, tried the Apple one on. I mean, very different from the Oculus, but I mean, it's insane. I mean, these things they're good, and there's things that I liked and things that I didn't like. I mean, I like the whole, like, Apple's very aesthetic. They do cool stuff, and I think they're definitely geared more towards like watching videos, seeing pictures, like watching stuff, whereas the Oculus seemed more gamey and stuff like that. But there's a few things, I mean, like the immersive thing. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's like when you put the Oculus on, there's like an immersive setting where it's all around you. So you're looking around. I mean, so like their immersive landscapes are pretty insane. Like your brain thinks like a percentage of your brain thinks it's there. Like you see something and you're like almost anticipating feeling that like wind or smelling what you see. That's because that's how realistic it looks. I mean, there's one where you're by like a lake, but then they play a couple other videos where like you're on like the top of a mountain, a woman setting up like tightrope walking, and I was like, I felt it in my genitals. I'm not scared of heights, but I do know my genitals are. I feel something tingling. And I was like, if I look down, but I was like, wow, I felt that scared of heights feeling. And I was like, that's insane. Everybody has the genital thing. Somebody says a butt pucker. I feel it more in my ball sack, if I'm being perfectly honest. And then, watching a movie, they did this like little demo with like the Mario movie. It's good. It's like some things are crystal clear, and then other things are just a little out of focus. And it's kind of like, I know it'll get better. So like, you know, as a whole, like it's like, oh, this is crazy. But then like the little, some things are really in focus, some aren't. But they just had like a demo of like Alicia Keys singing. And you're like, it felt like a human being was in front of you, like just kind of out of like not crystal clear, but it's like, it felt bizarre. It was that like real, like you're like, oh shit, this woman's standing in front of me singing. You're like in a room with her band and they're singing. And then there was like one of the cooler things is watching sports on it. They had like a demo with soccer and a demo with baseball where I was like, man, that's kind of crazy. Would you want to be sitting in one stationary spot watching a game? I don't know. I mean, if they put like a camera behind the pitcher or some shit, but like it reminded me like when you're ever at a live sporting event, like there is a beauty of the angles that the cameras get when you're at home watching it because you kind of get the whole picture. Whereas this thing, I was like, I think the baseball one, you were like looking at it from like the first baseman. And I was like, it's cool. I mean, it feels great, but I mean, I'm not going to watch a whole game right here. But yeah, we tried that. And again, you know, porn was a thought. I mean, thanks to Michael Linoci, he said he put that seed in my head and, now everybody's, thinking about it, but we did that, and then the rest of the day was just the bowling, and then we went to a fancy dinner. I mean, it was it was expensive. It's called the Little Door in LA. Boy, this is a really food heavy episode, but it was good. I mean, appetizers were like $30-something. I mean, it's fun though. We don't always do that. It's fun. We had this like filet mignon toast appetizer thing, came out with like smoke. It was on rocks. I mean, it was pretty interesting. Tasted really good. It was like, I like when like you go to restaurants like that. Like, don't get me wrong. My spectrum of food is like, I mean, I love McDonald's and then I love places like we went last night where I appreciate everything for what it is, as far as like McDonald's is just good. McDonald's had scientists in holes in the ground developing the best special sauce to get you addicted and fat and spending too much money. I mean, I like that devotion. And then on the other end with this place last night, you knew every ingredient was there to make it salty, sweet, spicy, savory. I mean, they knew what they were doing. So it was fun to like eat stuff like that where you're like, this was made by a chef who went to school for it and knows what's up. And yeah, we got that. We got another filet. We're filet steak heavy. That was good. It came with like this crispy potato thing. It was like a bunch of, it was like they call it like a 100-layer potato or whatever. If you guys are familiar with cooking, you know what I'm talking about. If not, they basically cut a bunch of potatoes and layered them like, and then they fry it with all this shit. But yeah, we did that. And then, that was it. I mean, the birthday as a whole was good. I'm 37. And, I think the last thing, we came home, I was feeling pretty good. And, now I feel the way I feel today, but now stepping back, hearing that whole episode, you're like, that's how do you tighten up? You see how I want to tighten up certain areas. It's like overindulging here, blah, blah, blah. It's like there's things you can do, but also I think it's important to, if you're good most of the day, when you do these little fuck ups here and there, you're not ruining everything. Even today, before this, I fucking had, why do you swear? See, the swearing I can clean up, but I had some chips and nacho cheese, and guess what? It was fire. And are you mad about it? No, because I'm going to work out the rest of the week and figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. And that's all you can do, people. Just figure it out. When you feel like you're in some weird space, stop for a second, breathe 3 times, and say, I'm going to figure this shit out. And more times than none, it works out great. So, guys, that was a great episode. Happy birthday to me. If your birthday's coming up, happy birthday. If you're whatever age you are, enjoy that age. Don't worry about what's going to come or what was, find the fun things. So then when you look back, you're like, 37 was fun because I did that, and that. 37 was fun because I got new golf clubs. I still sucked at golf. I went bowling. I drank too much, and I wore the Apple Vision Pro and watched porn. I did not. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff, and thank you. All right. Bye.